on social media or you do not want to be seen on social media, I will come around with a mic and you'll be able to ask your question to our esteemed panel. So, to get started, my name is Billy Blake. I'm a rec therapist at New Leaf. I've been in the field for about 23 years now. To my far right is Wanaki Durden. She is our current Rec Therapy of Indiana, RTI, president. Up here to my immediate right, I have Tiffany Hall. She is one of our case managers that works with our clients. To the right of her, I have Lori Schweier. She is one of the co-owners of New Leaf, as well as a guardian of a client that receives waiver services. She is the past president of RTI, as well as been in the community rec field for the last 17 years. To the right of her, I have Tim Cohen, which is one of our clients and advocates for in opposition of the Rec Therapy Amendment. And to the right of Tim is Joe Valenti. He is one of our parents that is going to be up here answering questions of the panel that's also in opposition. So right now we're going to stop and we're going to watch a quick video from ATRA.
Hello, my name is Dr. Brent Wolf, and I serve as the Executive Director for the American Therapeutic Recreation Association. I'd like to take just a moment to speak directly to what's happening right now in Indiana and why it matters. Recreational therapy is a medically necessary service that uses recreation and activity interventions to help people with disabilities and chronic conditions to improve their physical, emotional, cognitive, and social health. It's not just play. It is an evidence-based treatment, and it works, especially for people whose needs aren't fully met by other therapies. Recreational therapy is different from physical therapy, occupational therapy, or speech-language pathology. While those therapies might focus on isolated skill development, rec therapy looks at the whole person. It helps individuals apply skills in real-life settings, helping people build confidence, increase independence, and improve their overall quality of life. We help people live fuller lives, not just complete exercises at a clinic. That's why it's so alarming to hear about the proposal to cap rec therapy services under the Indiana Medicaid waiver to just 6 hours per month per client. This would be a devastating blow, not just to the people who rely on these services, but to the recreational therapists who provide them. The treatment provided by recreational therapists isn't extra. It can be a lifeline, and these services need to be delivered by credentialed professionals, certified therapeutic recreation specialists, who are trained, qualified, and accountable for the outcomes that they help their clients achieve. To every decision maker who's listening, please understand, this isn't about cutting costs, it's about cutting care. People's health and their lives are at stake. Let's do what's right and protect access to quality recreational therapy in Indiana. ATRA stands firmly in support of those who rely on recreational therapy, and we stand shoulder to shoulder with the recreational therapists in Indiana who are fighting to provide the care that their clients need and deserve. Thank you very much for your time. Hello, my name is Dr. Brent Wolf, and I serve as the...
So just like Dr. Wolf said, we're here to oppose the cap that they're attempting to put on Medicaid services here in Indiana for rec therapy. They're attempting to lower us to only 6 hours a month. What does that mean? Well, there's 4 weeks in a month. So it's less than 2 hours a week. It's not going to be consistent enough to reach our goals, to reach the our medically planned goals. Just really quick before we move on, we have a beautiful slideshow that Wanaki's going to start us off with. 17 years ago, I was diagnosed with an extremely rare neurological disorder. I wasn't supposed to walk again, right? I had given up. I did not know what to do. I have a very active lifestyle. I've always been very, very active. You know, at the age of 41, I currently hold this job and 2 others. I keep busy, I have to keep busy. So, from the doctor to tell me that I'm never gonna walk again, there was no way. I didn't know what to do. It was a rec therapist who actually took the time and energy to come up to the hospital at 3 a.m. to take me outside, because nurses, CNAs, doctors wanted me in a bed. It was a rec therapist who took that time to get to know who I am, that person-centered care, to get me outside, because they knew that's how I thrived. I thrived during the summer, I thrived being outside. So that's just my little story. And I know there's a room full of people here right now that have stories and many moments to share of how rec therapy influenced them and how rec therapy changed their lives. And we're gonna open the forum a little bit later on in this meeting so everyone can share their stories, their testimonies. We need these Indiana policymakers to hear us, to hear that 6 hours is just not conducive to the therapy that is provided, in some cases daily, with some clients twice, 3 times a week. So now I'm going to hand it off to Juana Hiderim, and she's going to start with a beautiful presentation.
So before I start, we have another short video that I would like for you guys to watch, and it's kind of like a testimony that one of the guardians here put together.
Hello, my name is Christina Himmelgarner. Our daughter, Ashley, has had the family support waiver for 12 years. When we were finally able to get it, after an 8-year wait, we were told that there was a set dollar amount available to use from a provided list of services, which was multiple pages long. We have used all of our funding every year but 2020 due to COVID. We were told that it was all right per the HCBS setting rule that we could choose whichever services that we felt were best for our daughter as long as it was within the budgeted dollars for our budget year. We began with music, respite, and PAC. However, the respite and PAC, we have gone through multiple people and agencies. Then, in the fall of 2021, it was suggested that we try rec therapy. This would be an individual with a degree, which also means that it is someone who has more training to work with people who have disabilities. I asked what a rec therapist does. The explanation provided was, recreation therapy is about using leisure activities to promote wellness. It can cross over more than any other setting due to they have the community instead of a facility. They offer one-on-one services and can have literally years to work towards the client's specific goals. The music and rec therapy have been the best fit for our daughter. It took 8 years to finally find the best and right fit for her. We still have the same music therapist that we began with, as she is amazing. She has incorporated into Ashley's goals the same goals as were in her IEP when she was in school, like working with coins, reaching across her midline, standing up and down while the music is playing, working with learning how to tell time on a clock, colors, and shapes. The list goes on and on from there. We continue to be amazed after all this time how music is so much more than a beat, a song, and an instrument. Rec therapy works with Ashley walking so that hopefully she will be able to do this again without assistance. Swimming, going to zoos, baseball games, hockey games, movies, working on fine and gross motor skills, interacting with others, thinking and problem solving by utilizing puzzles and games, cooking skills, going to the same things as a quote non-disabled person can go. A perfect example of this is the Night to Shine prom for the disabled. Rec therapy is such an important service for a disabled person. It allows them to feel as though they are included in the community. Also, even though our daughter is nonverbal, she definitely has her way of communicating and showing her emotions. She is always so excited for both music and rec therapy. She gets so very excited for her sessions to begin. She is sitting at the kitchen table ready to go when music therapy arrives. When rec therapy, she knows that she will be going out in the community and is waiting by the door to go. All of the pictures that you're currently seeing in this presentation are from her rec therapy and music therapy, showing the things that they do together. One of my favorite sayings is, we believe there's no such thing as special needs. We all have the same needs, but special are the solutions. Each person on a waiver has the same needs as a person not on a waiver. However, each person on the waiver should continue to have the right to choose the special solutions for them that are available on the waiver. We have a set budget dollar, and we should be able to use the services available on the waiver as how we believe is best for our daughter. Thank you very much. Christine Bryan Hippogarner, Churubusco, Indiana. Thank you.
Division of Disability and Rehabilitation Services Advisory Council has proposed implementing a 6-hour cap per month on rec therapy services under both the FSW waiver and the CIH waiver. So basically this meeting will provide an explanation on why and how we got here. All right, so how did we get here? So the current 2-year state budget was developed based on a Medicaid forecast from 2023. However, that forecast underestimated the cost by nearly $1 billion, creating a significant funding challenges that have been promoted based on promoting changes to the waiver services, including rec therapy. While the use of 3-month-old data impacted the accuracy of the forecast. So a major contributing factor was unexpectedly rapid growth across multiple Medicaid programs, which the forecasting office did not anticipate. So this is just an example on what happened. And I just used ABA because they kind of started with ABA a while ago. So the rising cost of ABA therapy, in 2019, it started at $120 million a year. So it cost $120 million a year in order for clients to receive ABA therapy. In 2020, it went down to 102 million, and then in 2021, right after COVID, ABA jumped up to $276 million a year. Okay, so then in 2020, it jumped up again to $420 million, and in 2023, ABA jumped up to $639 million. So this is kind of in relation to what's going on with rec therapy. So during COVID, rec therapy again jumped, and we've seen more people utilizing our services. And Lori Schreier is going to give you a little bit more in detail explanation of how that happened.
And I'm going to get the move because if I don't, you're going to see me bouncing. So part of the reason why we have a 50% increase in rec therapy was during this time frame, we got a rate increase. And part of that was because the federal government looked at the rates that were being provided to providers for our services, and none of them, or a lot of them I should say, had not been touched in over 20 years. As part of the contract with the federal government, they're required to review those every 4 to 5 years, and they had not. And the federal government had said, okay, we're not going to extend your contract if you do not fix this. And that's when the rate methodology review started. Who all remembers that? Rec therapists, hands? Yeah, it was like a race to get all the information to the state. And so they knew exactly how much it cost for us to provide the services. We started at $43.12. That's where we were when rec therapy was added to the budgets, to the waiver in 2002. And that's what it was all the way up until, when was that, 2023? And then we got a 56% raise increase to $67.24, which is very much needed for our services. We're community-based, we're driving. I put together a letter that helped with for RTI and looked at the percentage of what gas had gone up versus what our costs had, and it was over hundreds of percents. I don't remember exactly what that was. It was a couple years ago, but it was quite a bit increase just in gas prices, let alone the cost of going to a movie had increased significantly. We all saw inflation, after COVID. So that's part of why we went up in the cost of service, because we were finally getting paid what we deserve to get paid for our service. The other one was during COVID, individuals that were going to day programs or any kind of group setting were no longer allowed to do that for quite a long time, but they could receive one-to-one services. So a lot of providers stepped in. Rec therapists really stepped in and helped support individuals with mental health and community access and just meaningful day activities during COVID. And then when day programs opened back up, a lot of people are like, you know what, this one-to-one works so much better for my family than the day services did. And that's how we got to this 50% in additional costs for rec therapy. I'm going to next talk about the cost savings versus the enrollment growth. While the state has saved approximately $350 million, primarily through the waitlist related to cost-cutting measures, those savings were offset by unanticipated cost increases, resulting in a net savings of $85 million from the general fund. Part of why we have such a wait list right now is you can find the applications for the waivers. They're posted on the FSSA's page or DDRS's page. And every single year, it has spelled out exactly how many participants are allowed to be served on each waiver. So they're allowed to accept applications, but they are not allowed to serve above and beyond with those numbers that they've presented to the Center for Medicare and Medicaid, the federal government who approves these. They cannot go above that. So a lot of people on wait lists because of that. And that's part of why we have, such a bottleneck in that area too. So, and then enrollment impacts. From January of 2020 to April of 2023, Medicaid population in Indiana grew by 50%. Anybody want to take a guess why? What years were those? COVID. This is an overall Medicaid review, that percentage, and a lot of individuals lived in, especially our elderly population, lived in nursing homes, and during COVID, we had a lot of deaths, unfortunately, and the state found a better way, which is providing in-home services for our elderly population, but it was changing where the money came from. So Medicaid's like this big overarching like budget, right? And then DDRS, BEADS is underneath that budget. And we had to switch from the Medicaid for nursing homes to the pathways, and what's now the pathways, and what used to be the aging and disabled services. And that has ballooned up in how many people want to use it, because people don't want to live in facilities. If you can live at home, it's a much better option for most people, right? I think we can all agree with that. So that's part of why we're in this spot. The state opened these up, not really noticing or anticipating how many people actually wanted to live at home or live in the community versus in facilities. And that's kind of where we're in the financial situation here in Indiana that we are, along with somebody using old information. And then you guys want to know the really scary part? We had that $1 billion in our Medicaid fund, and they determined that they didn't need it because of the forecasting. So they gave it back to the general fund, and now we cannot get it back. Once it's in the general fund, it can go to anything in Indiana. So that's kind of why we're financially in this spot, and this is the proposed changes are FSSA's approach to trying to cut costs back. I don't know that it's clear for anyone how or why that is going to be cost savings for the state. So.
All right, so the waiver reset proposed changes and implications for rec. So limits rec therapy to 6 hours per month. So this will impose a strict cap on recreational therapy services under the FSW waiver and the CIH waiver, regardless of the individual's need or treatment goals. So this is just for everybody. And so it'll increase the provider's caseload, so that means that rec therapists will have to take on more clients. It will reduce available services per client, leading providers to serve more individuals within the same time frame, potentially impacting the quality of care and the individualized attention. So everyone in here, I can assume, receives rec therapy. Sometimes our outings can take up to 3 hours or 4 hours, right? Sometimes it's a 20-minute drive just to get there and back. And so 6 hours would just not be enough. It will reduce session frequency and the duration. So constrains the availability to deliver consistent and evidence-based interventions by limiting how often and how long sessions can be. So restricts access to therapeutic activity. So it will narrow the range and scope of activities that can be offered through recreational therapy, limiting opportunities to community integration, skill development, and goal attainment. So it undermines the home and community-based setting rule that's vital to the services as essential. Lori, real quick, can you explain what that rule is, please?
So in 2023, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services at the federal level determined that if you were going to have home and community-based services like our waivers, that you had to follow their settings rule. And it states that the individual gets to choose the services, where they're provided, and who provides them to be able to meet their needs. So the Indiana had to adopt that, by the way, since we have the HCBS waivers. And this violates that. It forces families to no longer be able to utilize rec therapy for accessing the community, and is trying to force them into utilizing services that are currently available, but most individuals are not choosing for whatever reason, whether it's unskilled staff, or they can't find it, or they've had a really negative experience with the services they're asking families to utilize instead of rec therapy, or participant attendant care, or PAC, or DHI, which is the day have individual. The requirements to provide those are a high school diploma. I have a 4-year bachelor's degree. I had to do an internship. I'm nationally certified. I have to maintain competencies. So the quality of the individual that's providing those services versus what a rec therapist provides it's not as great. And there are some really great people that provide it, but for most families, you have the choice now. And how many of you are utilizing PAC instead of rec? For the record, there are 0 hands up. Just want to make that clear.
All right, so now we're going to talk about current advocacy efforts. that's in it was in development when I made this, but that's kind of now what's going on. So media and public awareness. So we actually have been in contact with several, news stations. We did have a client that was interviewed by a news station. So engaging with the local news station and newspapers that are interested in covering the issue. Advocacy resource distribution. So advocacy cheat sheets. We were passing those out when you came in to help you write your letters and to make sure that we have all the right talking points. We want to encourage those letter writings and also stakeholder engagement. So who are the stakeholders? It is the owners of the company that provides rec therapy. And so one thing I know that New Leaf does for sure is every year they'll send a survey out to ask you, how are we doing, right? How can we make the rec therapy better for your loved ones, right? And so the proposed cap adjustment. So the cap is going to happen. There's nothing that we can do. But we are pushing for 12 hours a month instead of the 6. 12 hours is what behavior management, they're proposing for behavior management. We can do with 12 hours. 6 hours is just not enough, but we can do good with 12. All right, so ways that you can advocate. So you can submit your personalized letters to the FSSA Secretary, Mitch Robb. We have his contact information right here. We have his email and telephone number. You can also contact the BEADS director, Holly Wimsatt. We also have her email and telephone number here. There is a petition that you can access through My Voice, My RT, and through Rec Therapists in Indiana at change.org. And this should be a petition link for you to sign rec therapy. And attending the town halls. So this is the last town hall, if I'm not mistaken. So we had a town hall in Fort Wayne, and we had 2 in Indianapolis area, and then we have 1 here. So we really have been trying to cover the state as best as we can. And so just amplify the message on social media. If you follow us on social media, share and like our posts. It doesn't matter who you share it with, just share it, because the more people you share it with, the more that it's going to get out, and the more support that we have.
If you go to the My Voice, My RT, which is on your advocacy cheat sheets, there's a QR code to it. It has all of the ways that you can advocate, all in one place. So 2 other ways that you can advocate. This Wednesday, August 6th, the FSSA is having their Q4 financial review, and it is open to the public. There is quite a few of us that are planning to go, and the questions that we ask them need to be directed towards the financial cost savings of, services and the HCBS waivers. But it is a place where we will get directly in front of Mitch Rube and Holly Wimsatt. And so if you are interested in going, there is a group that is coming down. Unfortunately, it's in Indy, and it's in the first, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. So it's a drive, but if you are really interested in advocating, a lot of rec therapists, families, VCs, music therapists even are going to be going. And then also on August 20th, there is the advisory council meeting. It's going to be also in Indianapolis, but it is open to the public as well. And that's where they announced this originally, and we anticipate that's where they're going to tell us what their decision, final decision is. But Holly Wimsatt will be in that room. Holly and Kelly Mitchell, which is Holly's boss. So those are 2 additional ways that you can get face-to-face with decision makers to advocate against these proposed changes.
The phone number that you have for Mitch Rowe, that is not his number. If you dial that number, that's not actually nobody does. It's not a valid number.
We will get you the right one. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
All right, and so you can also share your personal testimony. So Rec Therapists in Indiana, if you go on our website, we actually have a testimony waiver that you can fill out, and you can submit your testimony through our website. And we do post those on our website as well as our social media. And then you'll also have an opportunity to share your testimonies today, which will be recorded and also put on our social media as well. All right, so these are the same QR codes that is in your advocacy cheat sheets. If you want to take a picture of them, you can, but I know that you guys do have them in your packets. All right, and so these are just some of the articles that I pulled some of the information from that's available online. If you're interested in them, let me know and I can get those links to you. But that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Lori and Wannicke, for sharing that. So there was a lot of information. I know it was a lot of information. It's probably the second or third time I've heard it, and I keep on hearing new things and picking up on different pieces while that presentation goes on. So now we want to open the floor to you guys to ask your questions. Because again, a lot of information going on. There's a lot of moving parts to all this. So we have 4 phenomenal people up here that can answer your questions. Again, we have a case manager, we have a parent, we have a client, we have a stakeholder. So I guarantee, well, I shouldn't say guarantee, I can't guarantee anything. But I promise you, they will do their best to answer any questions. So I will just run around with the microphone.
I do have a question. Does anybody from the state come here and meet with you guys during these town halls?
The question was, anybody from the state actually come and attend some of these town halls that have been hosted?
They have all been invited. We have not had anybody in attendance, but what we have done is these are all being recorded. We've actually had a video clip put together, and unfortunately this is the last week, so we took the ones from the previous 3 town halls, and we submitted, put them into a video explaining that rec therapy is evidence-based, and additionally, some other options that they could do instead of cutting these services or trying a one-size-fits-all approach, including a sliding scale based on algo level for CIH, as well as leaving the family support waivers alone. If you add up all of the dollars between rec therapy, music therapy, and behavior management, it almost completely caps out the family support waiver. So there's real no need to cap it for families. So they've been emailed to state representatives, FSSA, the public comment period, public comment email, people at ARC, anybody that we thought would listen or could potentially help us, they've received our videos. We've gotten some responses. We have some other things in the works as well, but unfortunately, no, they have not come per our invitation. So.
I wanted to follow up on that.
Thank you.
You mentioned about them taking.
I can hear you.
You hear me? Okay, you mentioned about them taking funds for the senior citizen center to live at home. Now, well, let's play devil's advocate a little bit. Why don't we propose this? And I know this works in the state of Indiana. My grandmother was in a home. There is a locked-in rate for people in a home. Now, I'm all in favor for a sliding scale. Why don't we, meaning you guys, propose to the state, this is going back a couple of years, a spend down program, meaning if it's $200 a day for rec therapy and it goes over 200, and let's just say by $100, $100 over, and I'm just gonna throw a fictitious number. The guardian or parent comes up with $30. And you're gonna get pushback from the state. But that was the way 5.5 years ago. They could roll it back to then. And let's get back to what I said about the care for the elderly. Yes, it's a good thing to keep them in their homes. Well, when you have someone with level 3 Alzheimer's, that's when they have to go in and they have more direct therapy in assisted living.
I can answer all that. So the waiver that provides services for the elderly is now called the Pathways Waiver, and that is under a different bureau than the BEADS waiver, which is the Bureau of Developmental Disability Services. I think it's now just Bureau of Disability Services. The BEADS BEADS budget is the issue, and that the elderly waiver is no longer underneath us. Now we have what they call the Health and Wellness Waiver. I hear what you're saying, and I don't know why the state won't do that. We would prefer that they keep it at an hourly rate, and really the 15-minute unit really works exceptionally well for our services. But majority of providers do allow or will allow for private pay. It just has to be the same rate that the state pays for rec therapy. Otherwise, if the state finds out providers are doing it at a cheaper rate, then they may potentially cut rec therapy reimbursement rates, and that's not something we want. We worked so hard to get an increase during a really essential time. But if you guys are wanting additional services outside of this, and let's say the cap of 6 hours goes through, you can always talk with your rec therapist about supplementing additional 2 hours a month with private pay. And that is my guess what they're trying to push people to. And again, this is my opinion because there hasn't been a lot of information that's been listed. But I know that as a guardian, that my brother will not do well getting out only 6 hours a month. And he is not appropriate for PAC or DHI. So private pay is an option that we've been discussing for him as well. Yeah, so I think does that answer your question? I can't really speak to the mindset of the state. I'm hoping when we go down on Wednesday, we'll have some better understanding of how they're planning to do things financially or how this is going to impact things. And maybe we can come up with some different suggestions. The hardest part has been getting a conversation with people at the state. Rec therapists were not invited to the advisory council. Neither was music therapy. And behavior management was able to get into the room, but they originally were not invited. So having somebody at the table would be really helpful. We're trying to find ways to do that, but rec hasn't been invited at the current moment. So.
You had mentioned before that there is going to be a cap on rec therapy, a decrease in it, and the max will be 12 hours a month rather than what we have now. Does that make sense?
So the cap right now is at 6 hours. So they're proposing 6 hours, but we're gonna try to push for 12 hours. We do believe that the state is going to make a cap. If there's going to be a cap, the state haven't discussed about raising the cap or anything. If we did 12 hours a month, that will give us enough time to do what we need to do. But right now they're proposing 6, but we're gonna push for 12.
Why can't we push for what we have now? Like, do we have to allow them to decrease it? Like, isn't that what we're here for? To maximize what our...
Maybe I should just go around. So just so you guys know, I've sat on the panel for all 4 of the town halls. So these are questions I've already answered. So that's why I keep saying I can do that. You don't have to settle for this. The ACLU here in Indiana assisted a family, and 2 families actually, in suing the state of Indiana back in 2012 when they went from an open budget system to the bucket system. And I don't know if everybody's been around long enough to remember that, but you used to have a budget, and any service could say, you know, I feel like this would be an appropriate amount for you, and the case managers could just push it through. That was back when the waivers were called something different. When they made the transition to the current waiver system we have now, they put into place what's called bucket systems. I'm going to use a made-up number, but just kind of give you guys an example of what that looked like. Let's say you had the CIH budget and you had $100,000. The bucket system would put $70,000 into your residential services, $20,000 into your behavior management services, and $10,000 into what they call day services. That included rec therapy and music therapy and day program. DHI and PAC did not exist at that time. They eventually brought in a service called CHIO, but that does not exist, and that is turned into DHI. A family sued because that $10,000 for community access, they didn't need behavior management, only allowed for less than 12 hours a week of community access with staffing. The state of Indiana in a 3-judge panel ruling, decided that that actually violates the community integration portion of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And awarded the family one, and that's how we got rid of that bucket system to what we have now. I anticipate families contacting the ACLU again and pursuing changes, pursuing a violation of their rights with this current proposed setting. I have contact information for the original families and the ACLU lawyer if anyone would like it. But as a guardian, that's your right to do that and to advocate, and I encourage that because according to what the state told us and told me as a guardian, you as a guardian, they're supposed to get to choose what works best. And if rec therapy works best, you're violating the rights to change that. So if we can get to 12 hours of rec therapy, that's what we as providers feel we can do. And then we are gonna have to wait until the state decides it wants to change its mind again. Because working in it for almost 17, almost 20 years, it's every 5 years they make a different change. And so if we can get to there, we can really survive this. I worry at 6 hours a month for rec specifically that a lot of rec therapists aren't going to stay in Indiana. They're going to leave. Finding a full-time caseload with 6 hours, that's 27 clients. Most therapists have between 12 and 15 clients on their caseload right now. There's not as many individuals that are available during the day. And it's going to be spread very thin between all of the therapists, and some are probably going to choose to leave. That's going to bottleneck, especially our kids that are wanting services, because the day clients from a caseload of a therapist that left is going to get absorbed into other caseloads, and the kids will go back on the wait list. So I anticipate this really, really slowing the growth of rec therapy, if not starting to shrink it for us. So, but this is what we feel like we can do. We can manage with 12. When I first started, I had 8 to 10 hours with a client. So how we've had it now has been wonderful, and I think it's the appropriate way to do it. But if we can get to 10, 8, 10, really ideally 12, we can survive this until something changes. I just worry that rec therapy providers aren't going to survive if it goes down to 6. Does that answer your question? Maybe?
I don't know if it's a question as much as a comment, because Dave didn't think, you have to hold something here.
No, just
I'm not sure it's a question as much as a comment, because they didn't take the time to come here to listen to us. So I'm sure you're taping us to let them know, but I know I can't be the only one that is extremely offended that they couldn't take the time to come down here and hear what we have to say. Now, I live out in Newton County, and honestly, I don't see anybody that's from there. And I think the biggest reason is we don't have anybody out there. Well, we don't have anybody out there that can have services, having staff and all that stuff. They don't have that out there. So by the grace of God, we finally got somebody from up north to come down there, which was great to hear, because now my daughter has services that she couldn't even get. Most of Indiana is rural right now, and we just don't have it. I mean, I'm sure it's hard up here too, where you have more of a population, but you look at Newton County compared to Lake County, land mass, we're the same, but we have 33,000 people. You have that many in one town, Hammond or Crown Point or any of them. We don't have them kind of services. So like you said before, people want to pick what services they want. We picked that for a reason, because we're seeing something. Her provider has been, very goal-oriented, and so she's actually learning things and getting things done that really, even when we had staff before, didn't do that, didn't follow through with that. So we're seeing a big difference with it. So I just hate to see a state that I'm very proud to live in to turn around and just try to hurt the most vulnerable in our state. It's just disgusting that they're even trying to talk about this, but really somebody needs to wake up down there, because I'll tell you what, it's really embarrassing, to live in a state that doesn't want to take care of the most vulnerable in our state. It's horrible.
So Lori was just talking about rec therapists that come into the state, right? I'm one of them. I live in Chicago. I live on the south side. I just bought a brand new car because of 60,000 miles I put on my car in 2 years because of my job. It's 30,000 miles a year that I'm putting on to come out to Indiana to not only work, because I absolutely love what I do. Like I said, I've been in the field for 23 years, but on top of that, I bring in revenue into the state of Indiana. I'm always out here shopping. I bring family out here. Last week, I brought a group out here just to take a walk at the Oak Savannah Trail in Hobart, and there was 10 of us that went to a local coffee shop, then we went out to lunch, and then we walked around downtown Hobart, things like that. So there's 10 people that I brought into the state of Indiana to spend their money to help continue the financial crisis, to alleviate that. I'm sorry, there was somebody else back here with their hand up.
My son currently doesn't get rec. We're on the wait list, and he gets B-Man in music. Has anybody ever proposed, instead of setting a limit, everybody has to budget their own money, their own income? Has anybody ever said, how much do you realistically need off of each of these waivers? And let us, the guardians, the parents, budget the rest. Because what works for my child might not work for somebody else's. Has anybody asked about a dollar figure instead of an amount?
That is a great question, and one of them I plan to ask on Wednesday when we get in front of lawmakers for the financial budget. I can tell you though, I looked at how many participants are on the 4 waivers that are underneath these. And it changes because of the renewal cycle and everything, but the lowest amount on any of the 4 waivers, which include the CIH, FSW, which most of you are probably on in here. Then there's traumatic brain injury, and then the health and wellness waiver. That is 55,460 individuals minimum at any point in time receiving those services. We have a $1 billion shortfall. If you take that and divide it by the 55,460, you get $18,000 and some change, which obviously isn't realistic for families. But in a 5-year plan, if we just reduced every budget by $3,500 for all of those, we could make up our $1 billion. So it's unclear to me at this point if they've actually looked at that. There's been nothing in the proposal that says that they're going to reduce allocations. And that's part of the questions that a lot of us, I think, have as providers and family members, is if you're not reducing my allocation, how is this going to provide cost savings to the state?
Someone right before you. Was there somebody else back here?
Since you said that, this was on the local news channel. Well, the Brain Trust, and I don't mean trust, I mean trust. Well, you know what they think the waivers are? Part of DEI. And we have a management team downstate. It's anti every inclusion there is. Now, I got, once again, devil's advocate. Why don't we, meaning the guardians, the therapists, and everything, why don't we file a class action? Because it violates civil rights.
I'll think of it. So as a provider, I can't. It's not about my job. And that's what they'll hear if I file a claim. This isn't my services. I provide services to clients. And so it really has to come from the families. And there's quite a few of you, having been at all 4 town halls, that are very upset. And if you guys got together and approached the ACLU about this, I don't know that you're gonna have a hard time getting them to pick it up. I don't know. I haven't had a direct conversation with them. But I know that the family that originally did sue the state and won, they have. And so I think that there's quite a few of you that are upset, and I encourage you to do that. If you're unfamiliar how the ACLU works, typically you file a claim with them, and it doesn't cost you as a family anything. It is grant funded and privatized, like through donations. So if you guys are interested in that, I highly recommend you look at the ACLU of Indiana.
Any other questions? I'm coming.
gonna make a statement and then I'm gonna ask the question. I have a son that receives rec therapy, and at first he received behavioral therapy. And the behavioral therapy was not nearly as effective as the rec therapy. So once he started getting rec therapy, things that like me and his father tried to get him to do, other individuals, he would not do. Like, he loves music and he likes to dance, but he wouldn't dance. When he did rec therapy, he got to do, like, go to music concerts, and he actually danced. So he was able to break out of his shell. He was terrified of certain things, like riding a horse. He rode his first horse for the first time. He was terrified of getting on a boat. He got on a boat for the first time. He had really low confidence. He felt that he couldn't be loved, or that people with the challenges he had didn't deserve it, or it just wasn't possible. But once he started having recreational therapy, he got out in the community more than just with his parents. And so it wasn't like having a glorified babysitter. It actually therapeutically helped him psychologically to realize that everybody's not going to shun you, and that going into these different environments out in the community, in these different situations, there's many people that like you. There's, that he's just as normal as anybody else. And so he's made the most growth with his recreational therapy than anything he's had. And this is since he was little. And so it's just traumatizing to learn that whoever's making the decisions would want to cut recreational therapy, of all things, which is supposed to be holistic for the whole body and the mind. Psychologically, it's supposed to promote growth, not just for the mindset, but physically, pushing them to their limits. And so again, just seeing my son be able to overcome terrifying challenges and even develop confidence. Now he doesn't have as much high anxiety. I guess my biggest question is, the people that are making these decisions, I wonder if they've asked themselves, if I had a loved one that had these same challenges, how would I feel if their opportunity to grow or to continue learning and growing and having confidence was cut down to less than part-time. 6 hours, if you chop it into 2 hours a week, that's not even getting to see the rec therapist once a week. And we teach our kids as adults that to progress, you need to have consistency. So for those making these decisions, I'd like for them to ask themselves, is chopping it down to 6 hours a month, that's not even part-time opportunity to continue working on yourself? And how is that, these decisions, working in the best interest of people that are vulnerable and can't help themselves? Is that morally right? Is it a humanitarian thing, or is it selfish just for a budget cut? When you look at that. So that's the biggest focus here, is it morally right? Can you sleep at night? These people making these decisions, if you cut it down to 6 hours, it's gonna hurt individuals, not help anybody. And all it's gonna do is just cut some budgets. So it's coming off, and it clearly shows that their budget cuts mean more than the actual people. So I guess I'm asking, how does 6 hours look for an individual that truly needs it at least once a week? How does that look for them? Someone that needs at least 3 hours a week. take 3 hours, that's 12 hours a month. Give them the minimum at least. Oh, by God, 6 hours is not even the minimum.
So I'm loud enough, you probably can hear me without the microphone. My cheerleading days do me well. If you want weekly sessions, you're looking at 45 minutes a week, which is not enough to enter the community. Not with one unit, so we're talking 15-minute increments. That's 3 15-minute increments. That if you try to go to the community, that's 1 for drag time, 1 for intervention, 1 for the return home. At our agency, we've instructed our families or our therapists to leave it up to the families how they would like to do it. If you would like weekly, it will have to be in-home or in your local community, like your neighborhood. If you are looking to get access to the community, it has to be every other week, and you're looking at about an hour and a half to maybe an hour and 45 minutes. And part of that is because we have to have time for paperwork, and we have to save time, bank time for months that there is, let's say you're seen on Monday. If there's 5 Mondays in a month, most people would like consistency and to not have that 5th Monday canceled. We understand that, and so we have to keep it a little bit shorter in order to be able to provide that consistency to you.
You know, also,
Yeah, and it doesn't include meetings or yearly reviews where we have to update treatment plans or, assessments or anything like that. That's why we're looking at that 45 minutes to hour and a half, 45 minutes a week or an hour and a half every other week.
How would that with recreational therapy help with socializing? When one needs socializing means amongst peers in order to learn how to socialize and grow and figure out the better ways to communicate, which is what a lot of individuals struggle with. How can you do that one-on-one and cooped inside of a house instead of going out to the community for at least 1 or 2 hours, which is what my son is getting now and how he's grown the most, being able to utilize that opportunity to try and communicate and connect with others. You can't connect with others if you got an hour and the rec therapist, once she gets there, you got 10 minutes or 15 minutes and you gotta go.
So they're asking families that if you want socialization outside the home to utilize PAC or DHI.
What if, in our situation, we live in Whiting, Indiana. My son is 19. He was diagnosed with autism and ADHD pre-kindergarten. I've been trying to get him a PAC person in Whiting, Indiana for years. There's been several companies to reach out, and then they say they'll call back if they can get somebody hired in that area, and I never get a call back. It has been very discouraging, demotivating, and so eventually I was encouraged so many times, why don't you try rec therapy? Just try it, maybe you have some luck. And then I actually got lucky, and New Leaf picked him up, and for the past 2 years, he has finally been able to grow in many ways. I was just so broken. I did everything I could to get him back, and there just was nobody available. So my family situation is a prime example of there are many areas, PAC is just not available. There's nobody that's in that area, nobody's willing to come out there, and he finally got a good rec therapist that actually has been working with him for 2 years, and we've actually seen him be able to thrive and grow and have confidence, not low self-esteem. He has confidence about communicating with people. So again, it's just basically like taking something away from somebody.
What are you doing Wednesday? You want to come down to the state and talk with them? You'd be great.
Yeah.
I have an open Zoom right now.
So I live in Fort Wayne. That's where we're from. We have quite a few people on the waiver there. It is not an issue just for rural communities. It's a problem even for our towns, like our cities. Indianapolis, we have rec therapists down there. Many families report that they'll get a PAC provider, they'll come once or twice, and then they leave. And I also worry about the quality of people. My brother is not appropriate to have any untrained staff come in and take him into the community. And the same candidate pool that we're looking for PAC and DHI is from the residential providers. And just in the last month, I've had 5 IRs for staff sleeping or not following the behavior plan, or someone told him he was dating somebody and it was their mother. I mean, just all kinds of, these are the people that you're asking to go into the community with our most vulnerable individuals. So I hear you. I share that frustration because I have it for my brother. He will just end up being limited to his home. Unfortunately, I'm not willing to risk putting him with a PAC or DHI provider because of the history and the experience we've had. So I hear you. I can't answer that. That's been a question that we've had for the state, I think, all along, is how do you replace qualified, skilled, trained, certified individuals with high school diplomas? And I'm not saying that people that have high school diplomas don't have value. There are some really great PAC providers. But the amount of those that there are to rec therapists there's way more qualified, great rec therapists than there are qualified, good PAC providers.
Do they not understand that? Do they not look at the statistics? They don't
I don't
pay
know.
attention to these things and clearly see the numbers don't lie?
I wish I could answer that for you. I have no idea. That's a question, though, that a lot have put into their letters to the state, asking those questions, pointing those things out. And if you guys have not written yours yet, and you, by the way, you can make more. You can write more than one letter. You can write more than one email. You can make it as long as you want. They have to read them and they have to post them. So anything that you send them has to be read and it has to be posted. So send them, ask them those questions. Because unfortunately, without them making themselves available for questions, we don't know. We can make assumptions. We can make assumptions they don't care. That's kind of how I feel. But that's my personal feeling about my brother. Our high need, high behavior individuals and our rural communities, the individuals living in the rural communities, are going to be mostly impacted. I'm not saying that people in cities aren't going to be impacted, because we absolutely are, but those rural communities that have waited for years for services, and then they got a rec therapist and they're able to give them as many hours as they want to their budget, and they can come 2-3 times a week, and now they're individuals accessing the community, that's going to go away for them. And for how long do they have to wait so they can get a PAC provider to put them back into the community or get them back out there? And once you get one, how long are they going to stay? You don't know, right?
Well, I mean, how many legislators are there in Indiana? I mean, the House in Washington's got 435. I should know 150 in Indiana. We should maybe do a little research before Wednesday, and I'll bet you there's people in our state legislature, our lawmakers, that have children with disabilities that are on the spectrum.
I thought it was 135.
Yeah, I'm right, so I'm close.
Yeah.
The statistics are, there's probably some families that represent us in different parts of the state that have children that are on the spectrum. So maybe we should find that out and then ask those questions and give them a little bit of a red face in person. We should go on Wednesday. Those are all good questions.
I have a question for Tim. Tim, can you share how has rec therapy helped you overall? What's some of the things it's helped you with in your life?
It's actually helped me a lot, like socially. Like I've learned to kind of adapt more. Like it's not really hard to go out in the community and actually like talk to people. Like I don't feel as nervous. Like it actually helps a lot.
What else has it helped you with?
It's helped, like personally, it's helped me to like gain more connections and just like learn how to socialize more. And yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not really sure I'm understanding all this. The PAC hours, I had a couple PAC providers and they didn't work out, and I couldn't deal with that anymore. So I was getting the PAC hours, so I was getting paid. We got a recreational therapist. I gave up my PAC hours so we could have rec therapy, but I did not go over the amount of hours that we get. So I don't understand. If they take away my son's rec therapy, then they're gonna giving back my PAC hours that I don't really want, because I'd rather have direct therapy, like, I don't understand that.
Well, I think that's just it. I mean, we have our children are basically living with us, right?
Right.
So they're tired of us like giving them this, that, dad, mom, you know, okay. They want Alaniki or whoever to take them out and show them the world and to interact with the community wherever it's at, whether it's volunteering or shopping or cooking or just going out on a play date, a ball game, canoeing. They're interacting. They're tired of us. They want somebody else to take them out. So it's my opinion. It's invaluable. But,
It is, otherwise we wouldn't be here.
yeah, right.
So-
I don't know. Can everybody fall off work on Wednesday?
So the question is, if they take away the rec, are they gonna give you back your PAC hours? Technically, yes. So they're only putting the restriction on recreational therapy, behavioral therapy. So therefore, if they're taking away those hours, then we can look at how to readjust your budget and put it back into the PAC.
But then it's not our choice anymore.
Exactly, and it's not really,
And isn't it the same amount of money?
yeah, the budget hasn't changed
I
itself.
don't-
It's still
they didn't give me
26,
more because we got a
407.
rec therapist.
How you saving money? That don't make no sense.
They're not saving money.
They're
not.
They're not really saving money, no, they're just dictating how you can use that money. And that's where it becomes, it's not person-centered anymore. Person-centered is the plans that we write, the PCISPs about how do you, your case manager asks you, how do you want your budget? What services are you looking for? We're supposed to be helping you find those services and then dispersing the money how you want it and how you want it for your loved ones and how the individual wants it. So, yeah, technically the answer is yes, we can put it back into PAC, but if that's
Then
not,
can I take it and then I'll give it to the rec? I mean, it doesn't.
I mean, that's
Extremely
something here, but no.
manipulative and illegal and
Well, once you earn it, it's yours, you know, I guess.
I can do what I want.
So again, like I said, I've been through these presentations, watching them, blah, 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 and random questions just came up. So at the end of the budget year for a client, what happens to that leftover money? If a client only uses 30,000 out of their 100,000, where does that $70,000 go?
Somebody's pocket.
So our first services are both federally and state funded. We currently are on a expansion to the FMAP, which is the Financial Medicaid Assistance Percentage. That is how much per state they get of federal funds for Medicaid. Indiana was at about 65% the last time I looked at it, that we would pay, or the federal government would pay 65% of services, and we would pay 35%. The expansion made it about a 70-30 split. Not quite exactly those numbers, but that's kind of what it is. So if budget isn't utilized, let's say you have 70,000 left over, or 20,000 left over, 70% of what's left over goes back to the federal government to their general fund, not directly to the Medicaid budget, but to the general fund for the federal government. And then Indiana's portion, the 30%, goes back to Indiana's general fund, not directly back to the Medicaid fund. So that is something that, if you guys want to press your state representatives, press that. Have them say whatever is budgeted for Medicaid stays with it. If it's not utilized, should go back into the Medicaid budget.
It should go back into your budget. If it
Either
has not-
yours
if
or-
it has not been used, and it's taxpayer money that we've all put into it, it should go back into the budget for you guys to help our kids and not keep screwing the fucking taxpayers. Sorry for my
You're good. You're good. I was gonna clap.
Everybody here, I'm sorry, everybody here is I say it straight out like it is, and I'm telling you right now, federal government has done nothing but take our tax money and fuck us since day one. When it comes time to help our kids, to help the communities, it's too bad. Hey, let's have a vote. What kind of ass wipe are we gonna fucking buy this week on our budget? We're so worried about stupid shit. We won't even take care of our kids
I love your passion.
and our elderly.
Those are the private conversations many of us are having. I agree with you. We are.
And I'm not mad at you.
No,
I'm
I get
pissed
it.
off at our government. I'm pissed off at our fucking state. We've been getting it in the ass since the beginning of this country for over 250 fucking years, and we're still getting it broke off in our ass.
Like I said, I love your passion, sir. I think that's
60
great.
years old, and we fought for our daughter since age 7 to get her these fucking services. Since age 7.
And somebody calls her retarded.
I'll tell you what, I have come unglued on multiple people, multiple state fucking people that work for the state. I've come apart on my fucking congressman, and they all look at me like I'm fucking stupid.
I think there's a big disconnect between policymakers and the people that receive services. And there are some
That's just
states.
it. They don't care about the little guy. They don't. They say that they do. They're there for us. They're there for us. But when you want one of these guys to come to these meetings and hear about how pissed off everybody's here sitting, where are they? They're sitting downstairs, fucking eating steaks with their thumbs up their ass because they don't give a rat's ass.
Well, where is Mervin at? I mean, did we reach
That's
out to
just
him?
it. I voted for that prick, and where is he?
Where is he? Should we? He's
Where is he?
He's here 7 times a year. Why can't he come to this? Doesn't he just live in Maryville? Or?
So a lot of the state representatives are on.
Frank Berman, Newer Science. The guy's useless as tits on a board.
You're good. I've been a big part of this advocacy part. We have reached out to state representatives in every section that we've done town halls, really all over the state. A lot of times what the responses are, they're on break right now, and a lot of them are, this is their time with their family. I don't disagree that they should be here, and we have had people watching our town halls. Our videos have been sent to them. We're getting responses back. It's just the timing of all of this is right at a time when nobody's in office. Everybody is, because they're a part-time legislator.
That's just it. They're always on vacation. How else can you make $250,000 a year jamming up the taxpayer's ass, and I'm on vacation for 6 fucking months?
I wish I understood our state a little better in our legislature, but
It's not just our state though, dear. It's every state in the 50 United States that once they get into power, it's all about that money. They don't care about the little people that are out here shuffling around, trying to make ends meet, and trying to help their kids. I've got a 25-year-old autistic daughter, and we have dealt with this since 7 years of age when she was diagnosed. Since 7 years of age. And they cannot tell us what you're going to do with the money. Where's the money going to go? Every time that I went to the board meetings, I went to the school board, I went to every freaking meeting that they've had. I have been kicked out of every fucking Hammond meeting, from the library meetings all the way to the school board meetings. I've been kicked out because nobody will answer my questions. Not one. And I'm almost to the point where I want to run for mayor for the city of Hammond and get rid of fucking McDirtbag, because that's all he is.
I don't know who that is, but
Mayor
you would
Tom
have my
McDermott.
vote at this point.
Mayor Tom McDermott, he is useless. Because when you ask him what's he going to do to help the special needs kids and the adults in our city, and he just looks at you like he's a 12-year-old and you don't have an answer. Never has an answer.
I have had the pleasure of sitting down with a couple of state representatives through this process. One in specifically a state representative and a state senator in South Bend. They're very receptive. We have a lot of state representatives that are on our side. It's just they didn't know about this. A lot of case managers didn't know until newly
They sweep
sent
everything
email.
under the rug, so most of your senators and congressmen and stuff in our cities don't know what's going on. They sweep it under the rug. Everything has been done like that in this entire state from the beginning. We're sitting in a state that's been in the black for 54 years. We've had a surplus of money. They can't put extra money in your guys' pockets to help all of our fucking families.
I can speak to that surplus. You have the numbers, correct? Yeah, can I see them real quick just so I can go over them? Have everybody seen the surplus that we've received? Like the article that they...
This is what I've been talking about.
Yeah, I can go over this. So wishtv.com posted that we have the fiscal year 2025 has closed, and the state of Indiana reports approximately a $2.5 billion in state reserves. That includes $676 million in the general fund, $41 million in Medicaid contingency and reserve, $706 million in the tuition reserve, and $1.1 billion in rainy day funds. So as I try to explain this to other families, this is our savings account This isn't just from this year. This is actually all the extra money we have. And they're projecting a $2 billion shortfall. And the article, if you read through, the reason why is because of the tariffs. We're an industry-based state, along with agriculture. But because of the tariffs, we are not producing the revenue that we should for the state of Indiana, and they're projecting a $2 billion shortfall. So this 2.5 is actually only gonna end up being about 5 with this next coming year. That's why they're not giving us any of this.
Right, but with tariffs that are coming in now, there should be no reason why there's any state funding or anything else that's getting gypped. Nothing. We just brought in $3 trillion in what, in the last month underneath the Trump administration? He said that it's gonna go back to the states and stuff where it's supposed to go, but yet, what are our bureaucrats gonna do? They're gonna sit on that and say, well, we have a surplus.
I can't speak to any of that.
You have to invest back into your communities and into your state.
Yeah, I just see what the state is doing here between this article and another one that I read from NPR and, I'm sorry, Associated Press, that this is our only rainy day fund. And if we're projecting a $2 billion shortfall in revenue this next year, this isn't enough to provide us, the waiver, any kind of support. Unfortunately, I don't think that it should be that way, but that's what they're reporting in the news.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right. No, I understand that.
Okay.
It just seems pretty sad that our state can have, well, hey, let's take from this program. This program which benefits every child and every adult that's in this room right now that's dealing with this.
I don't disagree with you.
I mean, put a little extra money in your guys' budget so we can get the services done that need to be done. 6 hours a week? That ain't gonna be shit.
A month. 6 hours
A month? I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good.
My bad. It's not gonna be nothing.
No.
It's nothing.
It's gonna limit and restrict access to community, especially for rural communities and high-need individuals that aren't appropriate for the use of a PAC or DHI or untrained staff.
Tax the wealthy?
I have a question for Tim. Tim, if you could share with us what rec therapy or therapy alone means to you, what would you say?
I feel like rec therapy,
She wants to know how rec. So I'm gonna clarify. You want to know how rec therapy, what it means to him? Yeah.
What would he say it means to him?
What?
What would he say rec therapy means to him?
I feel like it would mean like a lot, like it helps, again, like for some people it helped them like better socialize, it'll like make them better or feel better about a lot of other situations in life. And,
What would it mean to not get to see Wanakee as much?
it would kind of hurt a little bit.
Why would it hurt?
Because I wouldn't be going out in the community as much. Again, I wouldn't be socializing like as much, and I wouldn't really be having any other ways of like getting connections besides rec therapy. Yeah, me and Miss Wanakee have a good relationship. We do.
What's some of the things you've done that's new since you've been doing rec therapy?
Yeah, I went pickaxe throwing. I've been pickaxe throwing. I learned that I'm pretty good at it and really enjoyed it. I went on a group boat ride. I had fun. I overcame my fear of like getting on boats. I also went to a farm. I rode on a horse named Sunny and overcame my fear of riding a horse. I went to my first music concert and kind of like broke out of my shell and danced a little. And went to my first White Sox baseball game. And that was fun.
I have a question for you. How is this going to impact your daughter? And how do you see her life changing without rec therapy, or not being able to utilize rec therapy more than 6 hours a month.
She's probably gonna be devastated. Wanakee is like, I think she's got her in her phone as big sister, or something like that. So it's definitely not gonna be a positive. And, if there was money to put back in PAC, as the young lady in the blue and white shirt in front of me was mentioning, I would probably put it in an envelope and give it to Wanakee and continue on somehow. Don't record that. But yeah, it's gonna be a big change. She's tired of mom and dad, right? We're always around, one or the other, usually mom. Someone's gotta work all the time, but we both work. And Wanakee is a big help in showing her what to do outside the home, outside of mom and dad. And it's just totally different when you have someone else you can trust and that you really love sincerely, showing you and trusting in you, like, okay, here's how we're gonna do it, and see them through all these different aspects, whether it's grocery shopping or cooking or going to volunteer or pack food for the homeless or scoop cat boxes at a shelter, go canoeing or to a White Sox game. It's stuff that, you know, she needs to do without mom and dad. So yeah,
It's gonna be devastating.
it's gonna be a big loss. It's gonna be a big loss.
My daughter is Catherine. Billy's her rec therapist. He comes every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
She always
It's
talks
Catherine.
on Thursdays. She's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're gonna talk about the part.
Yeah, and that's gonna hurt her because she loves her coffee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just that,
And
it's
she's
the quality
gonna miss
time
her
that she's
friends.
getting with you guys, where she's getting out in the community, she's getting to do other things, that where I work all day, you work all day, and Billy takes her out, and he's doing things that we would normally do with her if we were home.
Takes her out. And
But
does
it's
that.
bad that we're gonna cut a budget and make all the people here suffer, okay? What's even worse is that monies that you guys don't use throughout the year should roll back over into your guys' budget, not go back to the federal government, not go back to the fucking state. They're sitting on a surplus. Leave the monies that you guys have alone and roll it into next year's budget so you have an extra surplus of money to add a few extra hours here or there.
And
There's no reason to take the money.
Wanakee's been out there with Catherine on her dances. With her, dancing with Catherine.
Yeah,
You
so
know,
I
she
think
can't come to the dances, you know, that's gonna hurt those kids there. Cause once a month in Hammond, at Scott Middle School, they have dances for the special needs. And they take Catherine once a month. And Wanakee's there, she dances with Catherine. She dances with every kid there. I mean, that's gonna hurt those kids even more. Because they love her there. She interacts with all the kids.
And I think what they don't see is that Anya is my client and we meet Billy, right? And we meet Catherine, like at least 1 or 2 Wednesdays out the month, and then Catherine and Anya, Catherine and Anya actually get to talk and we practice their social skills. And so not only do they get to develop a relationship with their rec therapist, but Anya also has a relationship with Billy. When we went to the White Sox game, as well as Kristen, I'm like, what Anya? Anya done went with Kristen and her client Sarah, and I'm just like, but you know, we really develop a relationship not only with our clients, but with our colleagues' clients as well, because sometimes we're all at the office together, you know, and that's what they're not seeing. They're not seeing the community that we build. They're not seeing when parents get together and get to find a support system. You know, you could call me, that's great, but sometimes I need my space too. But hey, if you develop a relationship with another parent that can understand your struggle, that's even better, right? So.
And that's just it. I mean, the parents are struggling to get their kids an outlet to do these things. for you to cut the budget in more than half? I'm sorry, that's appalling.
For anyone's reference, if you have the family support waiver and you only want rec therapy and your case management, you're looking at 30 hours of rec therapy a month on average. So to cut it down to 6 would be, I mean,
It's ridiculous.
it's very, very detrimental.
At that point, you might as well just say it's the law.
Yeah.
And that is a concern. That is a concern. This is a first step. And then they're gonna say, well, you guys are just having fun. Because that's kind of the mentality right now from the state. In fact, if you're a rec therapist in this room, I encourage you, we have 4 days left, submit treatment plans, obviously remove names, submit treatment plans and activity analysis. They are viewing us as, a lot of our activities as non-therapeutic. There was a ARC town hall, and I need the mic, sorry, I'm getting motions. Thought I was on. Okay, so if you're a rec therapist in this room, and again, if you've submitted one public comment, you can submit more. But there was a town hall with Easter Seals ARC down in Bloomington, I think it was last week or the week before that. And the ARC sits next to FSSA and helps with a lot of these decisions. And one of the comments they made was going to the grocery store, picking out food and bringing it home to cook is not therapeutic. They do not understand that we're not just going and picking up food to come home and cook, that we're going through a budget and we're planning through, picking out a recipe that that'll meet a dietary need. And then we're teaching them the steps through it, correct?
Life skills that you're teaching these people.
Correct. So activity analysis and treatment plans along with a personalized story of a client that you're working on these specific goals with will really help. Something else that they were making comments about is the 12-hour one-to-one therapy sessions that we do when we go on day trips. They said that's not therapeutic. If you all have high-need clients like I do, I have an individual who cannot access the community due to behaviors without a skilled person. He has a behavior plan, and through that he has a Human Rights Committee approval to be restricted from community access without it being a skilled service person like myself or his BC or his parents. Because of his high need. He's impulsive around food, I've seen him flip tables, yell and scream at people, he used to steal cell phones. He is not safe. It's not safe for him to access a community with people that are not trained professionals. And I really worry about him. He will be isolated to his home. He already has DHI. The only thing they're allowed to do is take him to go get coffee through the drive-thru. He cannot go into a store because he's snuck in when staff weren't paying attention and ordered food he wasn't supposed to have, and it makes him sick if he doesn't follow his behavior or his food plan. Those are the individuals that we really need to bring attention to, because he's not going to be appropriate for PAC. No matter what big cap rec therapy at, that's not going to be a way for him to access it. He's worked exceptionally hard. I've worked with him for 14 years, and he went from refusing sessions almost weekly to working himself into a place where he can now access the community with me. And we have now started to do, instead of just our regular weekly sessions, he started to work up to actual community events. So we went to a baseball game together. He's gone to his first Colts game I think he went with his parents when he was like 7, and he's 47 now. So he's gone to a Colts game with peers now, and he'll be attending his very first water park day just up here at Deep River on Thursday for the very first time. And he and I are very upset and cry together often because he knows that if this move goes through, he will not access the community. He will be isolated, segregated into his home. And it's really sad. And so I ask all of you rec therapists, you have the ability, we have the tools, we know how to do activity analysis and the treatment plans. That's what we need to show them, along with the story of how far the individuals come, why we're working on what we're working on, what we've seen, how do we get here. And I can help you if you guys have questions. But that's what we gotta do. We gotta prove that this isn't just fun and games to them, because that's kind of what they're seeing. And yeah, that's the biggest issue, especially for some of these bigger outings.
So just from a case management point of view, how is this going to affect you as a case manager? And how is it going to affect all case managers if this cap does go through?
I do a lot of intakes, and a lot of people, the very first question they ask is, can I get recreational therapy? And I say, yes. I'll put in the referrals, and then sometimes I come back with a quarterly in 3 months and we haven't heard anything. And so they kind of put the pressure on us to find the resources for them. But a lot of times, I mean, it's not on us. All we can do is put in and try to help get the services. But if we can't get the services, they kind of look to us like, what else is left? Well, if there's nothing else left except for what you want and if we can get it. So basically putting in referrals every 3 months. But ultimately, I mean, without recreational therapy, and like you were talking about the individual who this is their only way to get out, it feels kind of contradictory to say this is your right and your choice, but no, you can't have that, and you can't have that many hours.
That's just it. By taking somebody's legal rights away, it's wrong to begin with. Okay, you're stripping something that was designed to help individuals. Granted, our taxpayer money is putting into this. I understand that the federal government puts into it, Social Security puts into it. Everybody puts into it. But at the end of the year, and you guys are done, and you have money left in the budget, leave it with your guys' budget. Get your budget for next year and say, okay, we can do this extra amount of time because we have extra money in our budget now to do these things with the individuals that are here in the state. We're not taking care of anybody in our state.
And that's kind of the other thing too, is somebody like in that situation, now we're gonna see more psychiatric visits. Now we're gonna see more hospitalizations. And let me ask, how many facilities are here that can handle somebody with those kind of behaviors? St. Catherine's? St. Catherine's. And I had an individual who lost a lot of his services at one point, was hospitalized up there at St. Catherine's, and then was told, time for discharge. And when nobody was there to get him, I said, well, what are we gonna do? And they said, we can drop him off at the homeless shelter. And I said, well, I called the APS, I called the state ombudsman, and they said, unfortunately, Tiffany, that is the option. So, yeah, without having rec therapy and things like that to keep them motivated and keep them out in the community and learning new skills, I mean, it can pretty much drive people to do things like that and be hospitalized.
So unfortunately with the CAP, we will see an increase in hospitalizations. You know, one of the things that I was talking with Lori about a couple weeks ago was if it gets to the point and a client doesn't have to go to the hospital, we're talking about an ED doctor, a behavioral health doctor, a rec therapist on staff, mental health techs to help in the behavioral health unit, 3 meals a day and a minimum of 5-day stay, right? Right now, I previously worked in a psych hospital, in a behavioral health unit, and that behavioral health unit was overran. We were having to turn patients away because we didn't have the room. And this is before camps were presented. Now we're gonna talk about camps, and we just said there's one hospital up here, like St. Catherine's, that has behavioral health. What's gonna happen? Well, they're not gonna go to the hospital. Where are they gonna be? They're gonna be on the streets. So what's gonna happen? Police. Now we're talking about, now we're going back to institutionalization that we got rid of back in 1984.
Well, I want to make a comment. So we have several, behavioral hospitals, but St. Catherine's is the only hospital that has a behavior unit. So we have several behavioral hospitals up here, but St. Catherine's is the only hospital that would take somebody that's on the spectrum. The other hospitals won't take anybody that's on the spectrum, which is very interesting because I talked to, so it's the hospital down on Dyer, right off of Calumet. They will not take anyone who is autistic or has a developmental disability on their behavior unit. So St. Catherine's is the only hospital that will take them up here if they have to go.
So much for keeping our people inclusive.
Yeah, St. Mary's will transfer them.
Real quick.
Okay.
Just so you guys know, funding, a 7-day mental health facility stay is anywhere between $14,000 and $18,000 for 7 days. The family support waiver budget is $26,400. It would take 2 stays. That's it in a year time span, and you have exceeded what they receive for waiver services. There is statistics and studies that show for every dollar you spend on outpatient recreation therapy, you are saving $3 in future mental health costs.
So, just
Why is there a budget left over then? I guess just rhetorically, business or private or public sector, you're given a budget, and if you pretty much damn well know I gotta spend all this money, no matter what it is, or I won't get the same amount next year.
Exactly.
So you just spend it, even if it's kind of just tiddlywinks, but you spend everything. Why is there money left over?
When individuals can't find staffing, especially with CAC and DHI, which is what this is gonna push everybody to utilize, you are going to end up having quite a bit of funding left over. I actually have an entire presentation on all of those numbers if anybody wants to see them. But you're looking at $19,000 left over in a budget. If a family originally used rec therapy and their entire FSW budget went to rec therapy outside of their case management costs, and then that's all they want under this new cap, the state recoups $19,000+ a year. So if they can't find staffing or they choose to not utilize any other services like DHI or behavior management or music therapy, the state would recoup $19,000. It's actually over that.
And that's wrong. It should stay in your guys' budget. It should not go back to the state. It should not go back to the federal government. It should stay in your budget so you can actually hire the staff and keep the people coming in.
I think that's part of the problem. They see the fact that the budget's not being used up.
See, our government goes off of feed the pig. We're feeding them. Is what we're doing now.
People who also utilize them for waiver case management only, just so that they can have the Medicaid portion for ADA services.
And they're not required to have any other service than case management, so they can do that, yes. And a part of those funds that are not being utilized are part of the budget that the state is utilizing, like they're forecasting. They are anticipating some money being rolled back into the state. They do not believe that every person that receives the family support waiver and CIH waiver will utilize all of it. They take a percentage of that. I wish I had access to know exactly how much that is. I don't, but they do take some of that into consideration. The only assumption that I can draw, and that many others in the community have drawn, is that if these caps are to force you to utilize PAC and DHI, with the understanding it most likely will not be used in full, and the state will recoup that money. And that is how this will provide that cost savings. But that is an assumption that I have made and many others in the community. That's a great question. If you would like to come on Wednesday and would like to ask, I'm looking directly at you, because you are such a great advocate. I would think that would be a great question for someone to ask.
I think this is more food for thought, but I've been almost a rec therapist for 10 years, and I've worked PAC and respite for 2. So I've been on both sides. Instead of going and asking for them to up us to 12, can we demand nothing less than 12? Because PAC can go in and ask and won't take anybody on unless they have 206 hours for the budget year. So how can they go in and demand that they will not take anybody on for less than 206, and we get just a minimum?
We can't get a seat at the table, and until we can get rec therapists can get into that room, and there is a group of rec therapists that are underneath My Voice, My RT, that are working to try to get in there. We don't have the ability or the power or position to demand anything. And we can't seem to find out why we're not allowed there. If you're gonna have an advisory council that's gonna give advice on waiver services, every service should be represented on that. They have one person as a provider relations, and that is all they have. And that is supposed to represent rec therapy. But as rec therapists, we all know the best person to talk about rec therapy and to advocate for us is someone who actually provides it. Same thing for music therapy. This isn't just exclusively a rec therapy problem, especially on these new budgets or this new proposed plan. It's just going to impact rec therapists the most because a lot of our budgets are 12, 14, 15, 20, 30 hours a month versus the 6 that they're providing. So until we can get into that room, there's not much we can do, but we're trying to find our way in. So, and if anyone's interested in finding out how they can help, you can come and talk to me afterwards too.
I have a statement and then 2 other questions. I'm sorry, you guys. The first is, it really is clearly disturbing in my heart that there's one person representing, and the best way, like you said, to represent each service is to allow a representative for each service to have a voice at the table. And if you just have one person and they're not representing each service, because they're not doing each service, that's a great strategic and wicked way of limiting the freedom of speech to advocate for those that need each different service. And so my next statement / question is that when we sign up for the state waivers, these different waivers, we get paperwork and stuff talking about the rights that we have. So if they're trying to limit one of the services, such as rec therapy, doesn't that, and correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that contradictory of the rights that we have as parents and the client's rights to be able to choose the services that they want? So are they gonna reverse our rights? Is that what this is about? Is what is happening? Our rights are being reversed? Because that is exactly what that is. If when we receive legal paperwork stating that we have the right to choose whatever services we want, the client, if they're saying you can only use 6 hours for rec therapy, that is clearly taking our rights away to be able to choose which services we want, how much of it is needed. Am I correct or wrong on that?
No, I mean, there is a cap on a lot of the different services, but like I said earlier, it feels contradictory. Thank you. It does, as a case manager, it does feel contradictory to say, hey, you have the right, but not too much, right? To say, like, you have the right for this, but you can't use it all towards this service, or you have to have a cap on it. But, I mean, I don't know that that's the way that they're going with it, to take rights away, but it does feel that way. But what they're saying is that you'll have the right to, yes, still have rec therapy, but only the certain amount of hours. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And we're technically already capped based on just the allocations. You can only receive as much as your budget can purchase, and the FSW budget is set. It's not changing annually. The Community Integration Habilitation Waiver, the CIH, that does change yearly based on need, but it's still capped on how much you can use, because if you're in a waiver home, you have to have a certain amount for like, let's say, daily rate. And that is calculated based off of need. Your algo level, along with how many roommates are in the home. That is capped. So everything is currently capped. It's just not stated that way. And you can choose now to use your entire budget. The limiting of this, that is my concern. As a guardian, I am concerned the rights of my individual who is not able to speak for himself is being violated. And I worry about what happens next for him. If this is the first step the state takes, as his guardian, I'm worried about it. He came from an abusive home. He is an adopted individual into my life. He came from an abusive home. He's been in the system his entire life. It has not done him well, unfortunately. He's finally in a really good place with really good supports, and now we're taking that away. It's really scary to me what's going to happen. And I know on a national level that rec therapists are paying attention right now, because if they can do this here in Indiana and remove the freedom of choice, they'll do it in other states. We really have to set the groundwork here to keep them from doing this in other places. So next step after, I was talking with you about this earlier, next step after public comment period is done, we're not finished on our advocacy efforts in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, August 20th is the next advisory council meeting. There's also a way to submit comments to CMS, and that should be our next step, is making sure that the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services at the federal level knows that we know this is a violation of rights, and we don't stand for it. And we are asking them to uphold their ruling that says that the clients have the freedom to choose their services where they're provided and who provides them. We're going to ask that they uphold that and tell the state, no, these amendments do not align with that ruling, and they need to take it back and figure out a different way for cost savings that do not violate human rights.
I have one last question. I'm not an expert.
Yeah. Hold on, let us run this to you because people can't hear on the live stream.
So this might be a little not related to rec therapy specifically. However, we're talking about funds and how they go back into the state if people are not able to use rec therapy, and they know that PAC is not available in most areas. Then just as they're doing this, are they sharing with all parents that, and putting the word out that those funds can be used if you have an individual? Unfortunately, if they're under the age of 18, this can't be done. But if they are 18 or older, you can become your loved one's direct care professional. And you can sign up to do that in a snap of a finger. And those funds in that waiver can be utilized. And the hard work that we do as parents and loved ones, just, rec therapy helps, but if we as parents and loved ones have to take them out into the community, a lot of parents I've found do not even know that they can sign up and choose an organization, get trained in a few hours to be a direct care professional or a direct support professional for that individual. And every time they take them out or help them cook or teach them how to do something, the same time a PAC person would spend with them, you're basically PAC. But they call it a direct care professional. I didn't learn about this. Nobody told me until my son turned 19. I didn't find out until April, But if people would put the word out, there's so many parents that they work so hard and spend so many hours. If they knew this is coming down the pipeline, if they were to change this and really cut it down to 6 hours, those funds don't have to go back. You can get paid to do the same thing a PAC person does. And if you can't do it, another family member or someone can sign up to be, quote unquote, that PAC person or direct care professional. And they pay, some places pay about $19 an hour every 2 weeks. Taxes taken out. But again, I don't think enough parents and people know about that. And so I really think that's an important piece as well to put out there and really advocate for those, again, for people that need that PAC service that can't get it. I'm able to do it for my son now, and it's not about getting paid. It's just those funds can go towards that. But if you can't do it as a parent, find a loved one that can. Auntie, or uncle, or cousin that can take them out into the community.
And that is great for a lot of individuals, but there are people like myself. I have no one in my family that can work for $19 an hour and take my loved one out. And there's a lot of families that they're the single provider and they're 70 years old and going out in the community is really hard for them. That's why a one-size-fits-all approach does not work. It never has. It never will. It needs to be, person-centered. We only have 4 minutes, though. Does anybody have any quick last-minute question or statement? I don't know that I do. Okay. I appreciate everybody coming. There's a lot of passion in here, and there's a lot of parents that are worried and families. And I just want to hopefully, even if we can't get anything else accomplished, that your rec therapists, the people that provide for your loved ones care enough to put this on. Nobody here has been paid for any of their time. We're all volunteering it. We want to make sure that you had an opportunity to speak, that we can provide information to you the best of our abilities, and just provide opportunities for you to advocate. Those opportunities are still available in the back There are pre-written letters that all you have to do is sign them and drop them in a bucket. We have the envelopes, the stamps, the stickers, everything is done for you. You can also pick up one of the advocacy cheat sheets, and in the back has QR codes. Take that with you. I ran into somebody at AT&T. I was waiting for my phone to be fixed, and I started talking to him about what's going on in my life because I was stressed out and got a text message, and I had 3 more emails that went out just from that. Talk to anybody, everybody in the grocery store, any person you come alongside, and take the QR codes with you. Have them send them out. There's community member QR codes there that go to, it's called a Mail To app. You scan it, it takes it straight to your email app, and all you have to do is hit send. You don't have to do anything else if you don't want to. We encourage you to personalize it though, because the state does have to read and post everything. But those are in the back. Take some with you. And thank you everybody for coming. Thank you, Wanaki, for organizing this too, and Billy, and everybody on the panel for coming.